Welcome everyone to episode 123 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentelarusco. I write stuff and podcast too. Today is a first for me, my first ever political guest, Marek Hejduk, or Mark Hejduk, whatever you prefer. He doesn't mind either way. He is running for City Council, Ward 7. He officially goes into campaign this week, and he's already up. You can always check out his stuff, but it was an interesting conversation. City politics is something that, by and large, a lot of people are very unaware of. And it was a very educational conversation from my end because, again, I don't pay attention to city politics as much as I should have. It's sad to see that some of the corruption I've seen on a larger scale does impact on a smaller scale. And we talk about that and some of the changes he'd like to make. But more importantly, whether you vote for him or not, some of the things he's talking about here should, as a citizen of the city of Calgary, give you some pause. Housing stuff we talk about there, even how campaigns are run, just some very basic, simple things he's talking about here. They are things that should be a lot more focused on. People should be more aware of, me included, and I will admit guilt to this. So I think this will be a little different than the norm. We'll be back to literature stuff a little bit later this week, but for now, let's go straight to my conversation with Mark. So, let me make sure I got your name right. Marek Hejduk?
It is Marek Hejduk, or Mark Hejduk is fine as well.
Yes. What do you prefer?
I'm easy either way.
Yeah.
I liked how the people called me in Japan, Marek-kun. It means bad child, which is like a badass name.
Yes, it's like Marek-kun. It's like, yes.
Marek-kun.
Yes.
Mark is fine, or Marek is fine. I'm easy either way. It's funny because today I actually met a Marek in my daughter's pre-K class. And I'm like, that's very unusual. She's like, yeah, but we really liked it. I'm like, that's really cool. But Marek I used to hate because the nub I have on my left ear is because one of my grade 1 teachers who called me Marek pulled my ear off during a fire drill. So I just said either Marek, which is the proper way of saying it, or Mark is fine.
Yes, okay. Very well.
Makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense. My last name is Pantelarusco, so I'm just at this point in my life, I'm just used to the fact that either you're going to get it or you're not, and it doesn't hurt my feelings either way.
Yeah, or you get Hejduk, which the guy, Milan Hejduk, who's the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, has done miracles for people getting Hejduk right finally.
Yes.
So it's like, before then I was a hedge duck.
Yes.
Some sort of duck hunter of some sort. But
my personal favorite all time for mine was Cantel Amigo. That was my personal favorite. It's not usually that creative, but it's like, okay, I'll give it to you. That was good. Right? It's like, okay, sure. And then there was a period where people called me Mr. Pants. I was like, it was appropriate for the time, and now I'm like, I think I've grown up past that point.
Cool.
She's giving me the evil eye.
No, not at all. She's just curious.
I know. Hi. But anyways.
All right. So what do you need to know?
So what do I need to know? Well, how about this? Why don't we start with a fun one? So why did you decide to run?
So I decided to run actually for a very good reason. I did a lot of volunteer work with the community associations and a couple of festivals in town. And most recently I was with Parkdale Community Association as a community engagement something. I don't know if the formal term was director or I was just a member at large who was in charge of community engagement. Volunteering is kind of a little bit, it's kind of nebulous in terms of overall titles. What I did was try and get more of the community involved with the community association because Parkdale has a very hard time engaging the community. So I did a couple of events and helped them with it, and we were very successful. And the community association came and they said, have you ever thought about running for politics? They have a huge problem with the incumbent, Drew Farrell. And they said, would you be interested in running? And I kind of thought about it, and I run a community wine store, so my wine store serves Parkdale, Montgomery, Point McKay, Varsity, sort of. So I ended up taking a bunch of my clients out for just sitting down for beers, really. Not at the store, at a restaurant. If the AGLC is listening, that could get me in a lot of trouble. But at a restaurant, and we talked, and we just talked to people coming to the store. What do you think if I ran for politics? What would you think if I was to run for mayor or Ward 7 for council? And so a lot of the feedback was, I'm innovative. I do things that are different. Our store is a resounding success in the community, and we have a lot of fun with the events in the community. And they said it would be a good idea if you had more power and able to fix more things. So that was important to me. That took about 3 months, and then I talked to my wife and my kids about it. I have 2 kids. My other one's 10 months, so he just drooled a lot. I think he farted, but that was his only response. And this one said she's okay with all this nonsense. My daughter Eve, and then my wife said, I understand that it's going to be a bit of a time commitment running 2 full-time businesses essentially, and I'm fortunate that my staff have taken over primarily running the store. And said, and that's how I ended up running. And then I started delving into some of the community issues. And my background before I owned a wine store was project management and change management, with a specialization in getting things back on track and organizing. And as an operations manager primarily, I enjoy technical challenges when things are inherently broken. And I'm fortunate that the current council and Drew Farrell has left lots of messes to fix.
Okay. Well, problems to solve. But so this is an interesting one. Like one thing when I talked to a couple people that I was doing this interview, right, specifically, it's funny because I think personally that city councilmen, the mayors, probably are the most active, visibly active people in politics for most people to see. Yet the irony of it is probably it's the hardest thing to get community involvement with.
The problem with politics right now, and this is actually articulated very well by Justin Trudeau and Mayor Nenshi. They're celebriticians.
Yes.
Right? So they think they're celebrities, and they tend to play. They're very good for crowd interaction, notably on social media. But when you list actual accomplishments, like we're talking new innovations, changes to procedure, changes to policy, they're very poor on. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in council who would take issue with that statement and would fight it and point to the flood, or point to negotiating through some stampede situations, or negotiating things like the Pride Parade. The reality is those events would have happened with or without them. They were superfluous to the process in terms of carrying out how it was going. There is no instance where they actually were boots on the ground making changes other than participating in these events. The issue that I take with that is that they're not accomplishing anything real. And a great example of it is, and something that I'm pushing as part of my platform for change, is Midfield Trailer Park. Midfield Trailer Park. So for example, this is the situation at Midfield Trailer Park profoundly impacts a very low demographic of citizens that both Mayor Nenshi is unwilling to talk about, or Councillor Farrell, or Councillor Cara. It has profoundly affected a bunch of seniors and people who are way below median income. And a good chance to change something primary within how we do business. Like, for example, evicting those people in Midfield Trailer Park, it's appalling how they're being treated, but it's a good opportunity as a city council, to say it's just not fair. I mean, it's visibly not fair. We could give them fair value for compensation, or relocate them to another part of the city. That's one issue, and then do what's right by those people, instead of basically offering suggestions of sending them to the homeless shelters or the mustard seed, which is what's happening. The second issue here is, and what Calgarians don't broadly realize, and this is actually very fundamental, is that the pretense that they're getting rid of the trailer park is that the pretense that they're getting rid of the trailer park is that the infrastructure is crumbled, right? And most Calgarians look at it and go, okay, well, that's reasonable, right? The grade and the sloping grade from an independent review, the actual water pipes and sewage is eroding, and it needs to be replaced. That's arguable. You could actually extend the life by shooting Teflon piping. It is fixable. It's not evictable quite, but
it's gonna get there sooner or later.
Sooner than later, right?
Yeah,
but it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Not really reasonable, but just sort of reasonable. The problem with what's happening is that Canadians don't realize, and Calgarians specifically here, is that what it's done is it sets a precedent for council that says, in a broader legal perspective, if they deem that the infrastructure is unsalvageable or unfixable, right? Because Mayor Nenshi has said the water pipes and the sewage pipes go under the trailer homes and they can't do work. Well, every house in Calgary has water pipes and sewage pipes that go under its home, right?
Yeah.
So what happens now is they set a legal precedent because you don't actually own what's below your house. You only own to the foundation, nothing below. So what it does is it sets a legal precedent that says, if I deem the structure below your home unsuitable,
you can get rid of people.
I have the right to evict you. And what Calgarians don't realize is that in Canada, the government, through its Civil Forfeitures Act as well as through its Municipalities Act, do retain the legal right to seize your home without compensation, without notice.
Yeah.
In some cases now, in a court, you can go after the city for with fair market value, which in those rulings has been ruled as the tax assessed value of your home, which is their first form of compensation. Most Canadians can't afford a lawyer to fight for full compensation. So what we're seeing here is a dangerous precedent set, and that precedent comes now. If Calgarians don't fight it, will actually result in more expropriations, potentially, without any legal recourse, because they can now point to a situation that said Calgarians weren't upset enough.
So basically it's, that's nasty because this is precedent too, because here's the really nasty part to that. So say there's a property that goes up in value as there's something they discover, just hypothetically speaking, like maybe oil, maybe something else, some kind of resource. Well, they could also just justify, it's like, hey, we can't fix the structure, they can evict you and
No, you don't own the legal rights to the minerals below the earth anyway, so that would be reasonable. And to be fair to council, there are situations where, from an infrastructure perspective, like widening of Glenmore, widening of Crowchild, right? You need to seize the homes because the homeowners aren't going to move one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
So from a city needs perspective, like we still can't have 1-lane roads everywhere. It just doesn't make any sense with the volume of cars and citizens. So the expropriations have to happen. Our argument from a policy perspective is there should be a bylaw in city council that should be written in that says, okay, if you're going to expropriate, you have to offer the median of the fair market value of that home, right? So it's not a decision that you're like, well, okay, we're just going to seize all the houses on West Glenmore and then expand West Glenmore. There's a cost involved with it, and it's fair to the taxpayers who live in those homes who technically have no legal recourse to leave.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So the city also could say something like, and they didn't, fortunately for them, in the trailer park situation, where they said, these are poor trailer people, they do drugs, we're seizing it under civil forfeitures, which would they're perfectly within their legal right to do so, right? They actually chose to go with the Landlord Act. This is actually very, very good for the citizens of Midfield, and we're doing some more legal research. But tentatively, once they declared that those people should have been evicted by 2015, they weren't allowed to collect rent after that. They weren't allowed to charge for property taxes after that. So it's more than the $10,000 that they're offering. Even more fortunately for the citizens of Midfield Trailer Home, the city purchased the land just last year for $8.9 million. So they actually took it over, meaning that the crystallized value of each of those homes is $46,000.
So they should be getting $46,000 as their offer, because it's just that's fair.
That's fair. That's the value. That's the value that the city paid for it. And the other problem with the $10,000 compensation is that it just simply isn't, like, it isn't enough.
No.
When you're 92 years old and you're on, assisted living anyway, what's 10 grand gonna get you?
2 months.
Maybe.
Yeah. 2 months. That's about
Unless
it.
you find 20 roommates who are
Yeah.
also all 90.
Yes. Which
But it's terrible.
no, it's actually brutal.
So the last thing that this whole situation brings up, and this is something that we're hyper-focusing on, as Canadians, we're always viewed as seen as being kind, as benevolent, as treating people as we would want to be treated ourselves. I mean, to the point where we're bringing in homosexual Chechens over to the disappointment of the Russian government, who's now trying to pursue some legal action against us. But because they're persecuted there, we brought them into Canada, right? Because we understand from a fundamental point of view that kind of persecution is wrong. In this case, we're evicting our poorest, our most disadvantaged, and our seniors, and nobody's kicking up a fuss. It's like, yeah, if you're a gay Chechen, no problems.
Like I said, I've lived all over Canada, so I've seen various forms of that selected kindness, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
It happens all the time. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I mean, literally walk the streets here and you can see how the native population in the city is treated. You see that, I mean, it's not, like, there are issues in paradise, quote unquote, right? And as a result, like, you just realize that there are other problems, and and something I've learned a long time ago too, for good or bad, there is a business and political system, and as a result,
the business end is clear here. The city bought the land for $8.9 million and only pulls in about $183,000 in taxes. They sell it to a developer for, let's say, even $10 million, and then they're able to collect at least $4,000 per whatever condo units are built afterwards.
Absolutely.
Right. So I absolutely understand the business driver, and I'm not arguing against the business case for it, because even if the business case was apparent, because I was fortunate yesterday to come in touch with somebody who had actually, under the Freedom of Information Act, and with the help of 2 lawyers, and 3 years later actually got that entire file, all the government. I brought it with me actually so you could see it. It is entirely redacted. So you have no idea what the city's planning. It's just random words here or there, and it's literal, like, blankets of blank pages. And don't take my word for it. There you go. There's the whole file. That's the file. This is the plans for Midfield Trailer Home. Sans the, like, you can see it. It's entirely redacted.
pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, right? So this is more worrisome to Calgarians as well, because now we are subject to secret plans with dirty deals with developers, with no legal recourse. And this, you're looking at the actual thing from the city of Calgary.
Oh, it's
totally blank.
Oh no, by and large, yeah.
By and large, it is totally blank.
Yeah.
And that should worry Calgarians, that our council is willing to sell Calgarians out under the auspices of improved infrastructure for whatever shekels they're receiving, so they can make a few bucks.
Yeah.
And now, and like I said, the legal precedent here is even more dangerous, because Calgarians will have no legal recourse to fight this.
Yes.
Because they don't know what the secret plans say. Because even when you get them, and you have to, the lady who we got
you don't even know what you're fighting exactly.
Exactly, that's the problem.
Yeah, it's like,
and if you are not concerned as a Calgarian, the city council can rule that your infrastructure is bad and then come seize your property with very little recourse. Guess what?
Yep.
Right? This is what should worry people. I mean, and if you think that's the thing, and second is about how we treat our most disadvantaged. The city of Calgary is the only municipality in Canada that got rid of fluoride. Who is it affected? It's affected every single underprivileged, under-median income family, which is seniors, kids, and new Canadians. And these people, like, I've met 5 and 7-year-olds who have had their teeth rotted out so bad that they had to get root canals. If you think about that for a second, a 5-year-old with a root canal because their teeth are rotted so bad?
That makes no sense. I mean, it makes no sense, because first off, I mean, that means under when I was 5 and 6, I remember going in a dental chair for like 14, 16 hours. I shouldn't have had to do that, but I did nonetheless, and that was just the way it was.
it's totally brutal.
Yeah.
And the reality of it here is they're going to save $1 million a year. Like, this is big cost savings for Drew Farrell. She spearheaded the anti-fluoride movement. $1 million a year is literally 0.017% of the city's total budget. It is literally pencils for a year.
Yep.
And for the cost of $1, I can save a family up to $5,000, $7,000, one case $16,000 a year in dental costs for the cost of $1 per person in Calgary. Come on now.
I mean, it doesn't shock me. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm oddly. I'm not, like I said, it's easy to be cynical when you see stuff like this. I think, but I think part of the problem too is, by and large, Canadians aren't aware. Like that's just, and I think that's a conscious choice, you know, or maybe an unconscious choice. Maybe we're afraid. I don't know exactly what the reason is on that.
Because I think the way it's going is that we've been taught not to challenge authority.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that inherently, I like the Occupy movement when it happened, because it was the first time that I kind of felt like Canada actually challenged authority. And it was a little mindless the way Occupy kind of unfolded, but I think it was a step in the right direction, because we shouldn't just, on its face, assume that what people are doing are for our best interests. We need to critically examine.
Well, that's true. Well, that's true always, right? It's something I learned a long time ago. You don't just go with what you see on TV or what you read on.
Yeah.
You actually should, like, you actually should, in this day and age, research. You have access to all the knowledge in the world in your fingertips, and when you get like what you got, which is like a blank document, that should raise alarm.
Massive red flags.
Yeah,
massive red flags.
But I think the other thing too, and this is becoming the other major issue about this city. It's becoming more and more expensive to live here, and in comparison to other large cities. And I'll give you a good example. Like, I take transit. Now, the C train's amazing.
Yep.
But if you look at, say, Vancouver, Vancouver does have a bigger population still, but not by as much as they used to. But they have the SkyTrain, which is far more efficient than what you get here. Yeah, C-Train. Or Toronto. Toronto's got the best. Now, Toronto might be the holy grail, but I mean, Toronto's problem with going through the city has nothing to do with their transit. It has everything to do with whoever designed the 401. That's pretty much the problem with Toronto. But I mean, that's
the question though too, on the other flip side of that, is what are they paying for taxes, right?
Yeah.
Vancouver's taxes are almost quadruple what we pay, right? So for my home, I'm paying just under $4,000 a year.
Yeah.
The same house in, for example, North Van, West Van, or Central Vancouver, you're paying $16,000 to $28,000.
Yep, that is true. But I'm noticing, like, again, just looking year in, year out, we are getting closer to them. We are getting closer to them, and I'm just looking at the fact that I get it too. I mean, things aren't what they used to be. We like globally speaking, there are resources is becoming a major issue, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
But I also look at the fact that, again, I look at Calgary is a metropolitan. It isn't a metropolitan, but it is like a metropolitan. It's bigger than most cities. I think second largest landmass in the world. And one of the things, like, again, living in what?
I'm fairly
Denver.
Denver's larger.
Denver's the only city larger.
Okay, because I knew at one point Calgary was the largest.
No, Denver's 1, Calgary's 2, but it's not by much. Like,
okay. Square inch.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's not. Denver's built like the same way Calgary is, spread out. So it's why it's like it is. But I look at the fact that. Again, just the fact is Calgary is like, it's Toronto, it's Vancouver, it's Montreal. Now, grant you, like I said, we don't quite pay what they pay, but every year we're getting closer and closer to that, and I'm looking at what I'm getting for that in comparison to other large cities. It's not where it should be.
And I don't disagree with that statement at all.
Yeah.
I agree. For what I pay for in taxes currently compared to what I'm receiving in services, it's woefully underrepresented.
Yeah, that's something I just me personally living in other cities, I noticed the difference. Again, don't get me wrong, I love the C train. That part of transit's really good. But thing is, if you look at what the C train covers, you look at what the city itself covers, right?
Well, I mean, like I looked at Japan. If you traveled from my home station, Brentwood, to your downtown, right? In Japan, I would have gone through 3 different cities, and I would have probably paid closer to $22.
Yeah.
Just to one way, right?
Yeah.
2 ways would be 40 unless I bought a train pass, right? Which is almost, I think it was like, I don't remember, but it was a couple of hundred, right? Like the point I think I'm trying to make is like from that perspective I get it, but in terms of overall,
Yeah.
and we're woefully spoiled in terms of our transit costs
Yes.
compared to anywhere else.
Yeah.
Frankly, I mean Vancouver has the 3 zones now, right? And I really like that about Vancouver because you know, if you're doing 1 zone travel, it's cheap. If you're doing 2 zone travel, it's a little more expensive. If you're doing 3 zoner, it's even more expensive.
And Toronto's got something similar. What they do is they do by metropolitan. Like you have the metropolitan, like the subway and bus systems are still relatively like just city. But if you want to go from, let's say, Pickering to Mississauga,
Right.
you pay more, by and large, significantly more, unless you want to take the really long way to get there, right? So,
Right.
but I mean, I'm just saying, like I said, just noticing that, just like noticing those little things, it's like we're not quite where we should be. But like I said, it's. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. It's interesting to see where the city's going. It's like the city has grown so fast. The infrastructure has been flat for many years now, struggling to keep up, and we're expanding on top of that to boot. So it's almost like there's no planning. Like another good example is the ring road's a good idea, but I also think they should be looking at the next ring road because you're already you're going to swallow up based on just current rates. Airdrie and a lot more outside cities are going to be swallowed up within 10 years. In 10 more years, you're going to need another ring road to compete with
Well, you need what Vancouver ended up doing, right? The
Yeah.
lower mainland area and the greater Vancouver area. Right?
Yeah.
So even though Coquitlam, Burnaby, North Van, West Van, Vancouver, Surrey, Richmond have different city councils, they operate as the greater Vancouver area, right?
Yeah.
That too is something like, I mean, they annexed Bow&S at one point when they grew out. We're getting to that point where, I mean, it's only a 5-minute drive between the northernmost tip of Calgary to Airdrie, right? Not even, it's like 2 minutes on the highway, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like down the road. But once again, this isn't something that is something that council doesn't worry about because for them, it's not about future planning at any point. It's about getting reelected for the next election.
And it's also about getting through the day, not so thinking about the week or the month or the year. It's just getting through the day. So.
All right.
Yeah, fair enough. So.
That was the most long-winded answer we've given so far.
Pretty much so, but I mean, it's good because the other thing too is it's not quite the same. The other thing too is you see interviews a lot of times. There's not a lot of actual answers in interviews, which is something that it's refreshing to see. So it's refreshing to see. So the election is coming up real soon.
A month and 6 days or something.
Yeah. So if you don't, let's just say hypothetically you don't win.
Yep.
Right. So you think you're gonna make? Have you raised more people's awareness for some of the issues going on? Do you think
we haven't to be honest, we've actually held off on aggressively going door to door because there's really no need for it. Technically, we're not candidates yet. That's the other funny part. So the public is like, oh yeah, these people are on CalgaryElections.com and these people are actual candidates. The reality is nobody becomes a candidate until September 19th. So September 18th, I have to show up next door at City Hall with my piece of paper and $100 in hand. And between 9 and noon, they just take in candidates. Then Elections Calgary takes all the papers and goes, does this person who nominated me, who endorsed my running, live in Calgary? Are they the person who they say they are? Do they live at this address? Check. And they go through all the names in my paper, which I'm currently at 200 and something. And they go through all of them to make sure that they're all valid signatures, that I have at least 100 valid signatures for my area so I can run in my ward. September 19th, they actually officially declare you a candidate. The issue I take with this, with the way it's kind of been unfolded, is that all the incumbents and all these other people jumping the gun is that, hey, they're not candidates, so they're technically still lying on all their marketing material because they're saying, candidate for Ward 7. You're not a candidate yet. They're self-declared, but they're not actually legally a candidate, right? So they're already committing fraud on one level to the public, right? The other issue, the other instance I take issue, and this is the problem, is that the public is so misinformed about this process that a lot of the community associations and a lot of the universities that are in my ward in the technical school are saying, well, let's do a debate, on September 14th. Well, what you're doing by doing the debates early before declared candidacy is that there might be a candidate, and Kevin Taylor, who's run before, is put his name in, but he hasn't declared whether he's going to go or not. There's one guy, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Braun, so Mr. Braun, he just declared last week. There could be another candidate that's totally anonymous that shows up on the 18th with the paperwork and then is running on the 19th. So by doing any debate early, you're actually, what you're doing is a disservice to the public. Now, of course, the incumbent and the people who traditionally run against her, meaning Margaret Aftergood and Brent Alexander, are more than happy to encourage this because then it only looks like there's 3 candidates in Ward 7.
Yeah.
But all 3 of them are committing fraud. Not major fraud that's financially disastrous that you can pursue in a court of law, but they are defrauding the public.
It's true, but no. Again, I'm not saying you should defraud the public. But this is just I'm just going to say this here on the air. You should be making. Even though you shouldn't do what they do exactly. You should be making it clear now that you are planning to run, even though you're not officially a candidate yet.
Correct.
Right? Because if you the one thing they're doing, this, and again, I understand, look, on their end, I kind of understand this. This is the game it seems to be everybody has been playing for so long that it's almost like this is accepted.
It's acceptable behavior to lie.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, because you're competing with everybody else to get attention. And because ultimately, in any form of marketing, it's about getting your name out there louder and saying that you can fulfill whatever promises you are going to fulfill, and whatever message, if you can be consistent in your vision for your message, whatever that is. And the little details, the way they look at it, don't matter as much, right? So, while ethically speaking, you're right. Make sure, like, there's obviously things like this, but other things as well. Get it heard as much as possible. There are things, and the one thing you can learn from someone like Nancy is he's really good at being social and interacting with people.
Online only.
That might be true, but there is merit to that, right? At least in getting the attention for yourself, and that's why he does it.
I don't discount that, but it's in a lot of their cases, it's making noise for the sake of noise, right? There's no meaningful action behind it. Action without meaning to the public, Mayor Nitsch's, at the library reading to kids. Great, what a wonderful guy. So what?
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But in the broader scheme of things, so what? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Any of these, and this is the thing. This is where, as our campaign team, when we look and we start unfolding, and I'm unfortunate that I have Jill helping me out with this, right? Because she's more on your side of the street. She gets it. To me, I'm kind of the guy's like, unless I have something meaningful to say, I don't say it.
And honestly, that makes you okay. So this thing, honestly, that's a good quality to have. And I actually get it. So I worked with an author. I worked with an author when I was in Arizona, and He was a master at presentations. Still one of the best presenters I've ever seen. But when it came to substance on some things, he fell woefully short. And again, I get it where you're coming from there, because the thing is, if you don't have any substance to what you're saying, why are you saying it? You're wasting people's time. And that's essentially where you're coming from on this. And I totally get that. But on the flip, but something I've learned myself just doing what I've been doing there is something to be said about making a little noise. Now, it doesn't have to. Again, you don't have.
Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
disagree with that statement. So, for example, like
Yeah.
Margaret Aftergood, great
Yeah.
candidate, the only person in the history of Calgary, in the history of Calgary's existence, was had to step down because her husband, her campaign manager, and her campaign team committed electoral fraud. People forgot that. That's a thing. She stepped down before the investigation got to her, so her husband, her campaign manager, who's her brother-in-law, her husband's brother, and 16 of her campaign members spent between 10 to 45 days in jail and paid between $1,000 to $17,000 in fines. And then people come to me and go, there's so many crooks in politics.
Yes. No, absolutely. No, absolutely.
My other favorite one that we came up with and we saw is like, one of the things that we're doing that's markedly different than all the other candidates. Every single candidate gets out and they're going to say 4 things to you. They're going to say, we're going to cut taxes.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to save money.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be great at the environment.
Yeah.
And we're going to be original thinkers.
And not one of those statements is original.
Because what they're going to do, they're never going to save taxes, because in the history of Calgary's, in the last 16 years that Drew Farrell's been running, she's been raising taxes. Each single one of them is going to spend between, at the lowest, $45,000 to $150,000 on marketing paraphernalia, so do mailboxes, drop boxes, flyers, etc., which is wasting money. Each one of them is going to print that on paper, use ink, plastic, steel, or wood to put it up.
Yeah.
And each one of them is going to do the exact same thing to get their name out there.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it here first. We are running an entirely paperless campaign.
That's awesome.
All my campaign members, my wife thinks I'm completely bad spit insane, but
I don't actually.
We are running a totally paperless campaign. You want my information, we're going to send you a V-card. You want the links to all my personal contact information, there is a QR code on our website that you can click on. It links you up to all the information that you need about me to get a hold of me directly.
I actually don't think you're crazy. Book-wise, so my first novel is about the idea of virtual world. Mm-hmm. I'm using QR codes in that to actually come up with fake pages, just as a bonus content for the world. The other thing too, ultimately, it's less work for you. We live in a more electronic age anyway, and the fact of the matter is, I hate flyers. I hate them. I understand why they're done in theory, but the truth of the matter is, if you look at how advertising's done today, right? Advertising is not done through flyers. It's done through specific targeting. Now that's right in and of itself, where when a few clicks on your phone, and all of a sudden you've got ads based on what you're clicking on. But that's another topic for another day. But the thing about it is, what you're doing actually makes a lot more sense. As long as you have like a clear target for people to be aware of, as long as you have that, it can work. Because again, I don't want. This is the medium.
Yep.
That's our medium. Our phones are our medium today. It's not our cars, computers. It's nothing else. It's our phones. So everything we are doing should be on some level geared to the phone. So why would you have a flyer if you got a? Yeah.
I look at it honestly.
Yeah.
When we're rolling the strategy out, we looked at. And mind you, I'm also not aggressively campaigning and marketing until actually today is the first night that we're going out into public to talk to people. Mm-hmm. Right? Like for me, I look at it and the person hands me a card. I get it. You're probably either a baby boomer or an early generation X, or you might be a late generation X like me. Maybe in a million years a late, I guess Gen Y or millennials, whatever, they kind of lumped it in, right? But I look at it and I'm like, are you going to also send me a telegraph note? Are you going to give me a dash dot with that? Like, it's so superfluous. Right?
Yeah.
Like I have literally at home boxes and boxes of
business cards. Yeah.
Right? Like it's gotten to the point where you shouldn't have that, man. Like, why are we still doing that?
You only should still have it. Let's say I go out of town, I go to a convention. Mm-hmm. That's the only time I take them with. I should be able to take them with, and even then, that's debatable because again, like click.
If I'm a smart conventioner, right? Yeah. Conventioner or whatever it is, all I do is I take your personal V card, which you can share off over your phone, right? Most of us are connected to internet or at least have messaging. Mm-hmm. Send it to a general mailbox. that randomly selects a V card because you can write that program, and then you win your prize.
Yeah, exactly.
You should never, at this point, day and age, touch paper unless you're under the age of 15 and you're learning how to read and write, or if you're over the age of 90 where you're like my grandma loves sending me a letter every month telling me, checking in how she's doing at the ripe old age of 98.
Yeah, no. The only benefit to paper at this point in time is it's still physical. No. Let me explain that one. So you do a letter the letter writing campaign, right? It seems very antiquated now, but let's say hypothetically speaking, you got, let's say, 1,000 people to write a letter for protests. They physically see the letters come down. The impact of that moment, and this is all I'm getting at. Right? The only downside to the electronic stuff is you can't. It's hard. The experience of it doesn't create necessarily the same impact. I understand where you're coming from, though, completely.
I would argue if I have a YouTube video that I talk about the trailer park and I can get 1 million views, and I show people 1 million people have paid attention to this, that is way more meaningful than me showing up with 100,000.
No. I get you.
Like I said, there's a good and a bad to it, but I think from an environmental perspective and from a perspective where we want to save our environment, we should be more concerned with that consequence, right? Like if candidates in this day and age are still using paper and plastic, metal and wood to get their meaning across, it makes them the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet, and it drives me crazy. Yeah. This is another reason I get into politics, because I got tired of being the guy who sits on the sideline and sees this and goes, could have had a V8, you know? Like, you look at it and go, Jesus, you guys are doing the same tire that they did in 1915. If in 102 years you have not changed your process, your operational methodology for getting elected, there is something very broken inherent in the process itself.
Fair enough. I guess this will be my last question. This may or may not air on the interview. It's an interesting perspective, though.
Okay.
We live in a day and age now where I can talk to you anytime I want, like hypothetically speaking, because of Facebook, because of Skype, because of all these different things. So long term, how do you think that should impact government representation? Because I ask that question because if I have the ability to communicate with you directly, right, or hypothetically speaking, anybody I want to when I have a problem, should government be bigger or smaller? Because now, from my point of view of accessibility, right, there's nobody that can be without access, that you can't access anymore. In theory, I could contact the president. I shouldn't, but I mean, right, because of just who that is. But you get where I'm coming from.
Government in terms of representation of people should be a little bit bigger.
Okay.
The Calgary example is brilliant. So, City Council commissioned a study. City Council commissioned a study in order to say, okay, each councillor serves about 100,000 people, which is more than an MLA, more than an MP. Okay, and each council, how can we be more effective at what we do? The study came back, and I'm fortunate because the people who were involved in that study shop at my store, so they told me exactly how this went down. So council made them wait for one of their marathon sessions, their 9 a.m. till 9 a.m. juggernaut session of council. Made them wait to the end. And this study said, look, to be more effective at what you do as a councillor, you actually need to take more off your plate. And the city should be split realistically between 17 to 20 wards. That would reduce from 100,000 to about 50, 60,000 per councillor. Still a lot, but at least it's reasonable. Like, you can still, with a team of people, mitigate all those simultaneous answers potentially coming in. Okay. Unfortunately, especially in municipal politics, it's really the loudest voices that get heard the most. Not necessarily the rightest, just the loudest.
Yeah.
Okay. So what that would do is it would actually create 4 to 6 new wards and would shrink down. Council rejected this idea. Wholeheartedly just said, no way. What they did was the worst kind of gerrymandering. They looked at all the communities and said which communities are like the communities that vote for me and which aren't. And so what happened, for example, Winston Heights, Mountain View, which is a brilliant example. The only people who would never in a million years vote for Drew Farrell live in the trailer park. The people in the trailer park would vote for probably a guy like me who actually cares about people and showed up there first. They're the first people I actually publicly went to talk to, even though they can't vote for me, which gives you an idea of what kind of crazy human being I am. So what happened was, they split and said, well, Winston Heights, Mountain View, that's a lot like Sunnyside Elmhurst, affluent, a little more money. Well, we might as well like that Drew Farrell's award. And Cara, who is currently in his ward, goes, well, older people don't vote for me. It's always younger families because that's who he represents. Well, then we'll move them out of my ward and pick up something else that we can move into my ward that I'm close demographically to. And this is the kind of dirty pool politics that we let him get away with. So to answer your question shortly, I think people should have more access to their politicians, but there needs to be slightly larger government on the representation side in order to filter those responses appropriately, right? And the city of Calgary, and once again, this is the problem with Calgary, is that they don't make this transparent, but I've seen it, because I'm fortunate that there's a number of people who I'm privy to on the inside track of the city of Calgary. The city of Calgary publishes lists on every community, what their complaints are, and by priority, like 1 through to 70, and every community, and then the whole city in general as a whole. All of this is secret and kept inside. It's not for public viewing.
Which it should be. Because that way everybody's on the same page. Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I think we have an interview. So
47 minutes.
Yeah, minus a couple minutes with interruptions. So, how can people find you?
Votemark.com, votemark.ca, they all direct to the same website. There's QR codes where you can get a hold of me directly there.
Yeah. So just hypothetically, so is it like Mark is an M-A-R-K or M-A-R-E-K?
Correct.
Yes.
Votemark, M-A-R-E-K.
Yes.
I kept the Polish spelling, so V-O-T-E-M-A-R-E-K.
Yeah.
We're on @Votemark on social media for both Instagram and Twitter. Votemark, separated by a space on Facebook. Votemark.ca, votemark.com. You can get a hold of me at Mark@Votemark, so M-A-R-E-K @Votemark.ca. Or .com works, both direct to my personal email. I try and answer all the emails personally. However, I do have a campaign manager, Dan Tomlinson, who is saving my butt on a day-to-day basis because he helps filter through some of this as well. And I would imagine that the team that I'm keeping right now who helped me filter through all this would probably stay with me to council.
Fair enough. Okay, hold on a second.
And that was my conversation with Marek Hejduk. Go to votemarek.com, VOTEMAREK.com or .ca. You can take a look at his campaign and his promises there if you're interested in that sort of thing. Mostly, though, take a look at what's going on with the Midfield trailer homes and kind of what's being done there, like with some of the things we talk about there. As homeowners, any homeowner listening to this, I think should be very interested in what's going on in regards to that. All right. And that will do it for another episode of Just Joshing. Now, you can support this podcast a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast either through Podomatic or through iTunes. You can also buy my books. The Watcher Storm Dancer are currently available at Amazon.com, MirrorWorldPublishing.com. You can also pre-order The Wandering God, coming out October 17th. I can't wait, and I hope you can't either. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Joshua Pantellaresco. I do have a newsletter. It will be coming back online in October. tinyletter.com/jpantellaresco, JPANTALLERESCO. All right, but regardless of what you do, thanks for listening. Stay inspired out there. Do the thing you feel called to do, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Josh.